Kia ora team, and welcome to the third weekly summary where we wrap up the last week's worth of content at Manawa BJJ. You're here with the Brockman Pete Hodkinson. You can find me on Instagram at GentleArtsNZ, and you can find Manawa BJJ at Queenstown_Jiu-Jitsu. In the last week, we covered footlock defense, transitions from single leg X into X guard, and then looked at off-balancing, taking our opponent to the mat from there, and a couple of spicy back takes. Hope you guys are loving all the content so far. We have plenty more to come. Let's get cracking. So to start the week out, we looked at footlock defense. The way I taught this was by starting in a poorly executed footlock and asked the team to correct the details as we'd worked on them last week. The things that I was looking for in particular were the arm control over the ankle being over the fulcrum of the ankle, and the foot pushing into the stomach creating distance, and the secondary hand as an anchor. These provide us the context of the most important things that we need to prioritize in terms of defending the footlock. So, the first thing that we wanted to do was alleviate some pressure on the ankle. So I create a grip on his lapel, base and push myself in, doing what's called putting on the boot to clear the ankle. Then I clear his ankle from my hip to open up space to sit up on his shin, at which point I can rebase with my other hand, locking his knee down with my elbow and my knee, pushing it down as I hip out and bump myself back up top into mount. Then I can clear the path, executing my mount. So from the other side, I put on the boot to alleviate pressure on my ankle, clear his ankle sitting on his shin, lock down his knee, and then bump myself back up and across, locking in a clean mount. Now sometimes, due to the way that my opponent is pushing that foot into my stomach and turning his body to the right, it can be difficult to clear that foot. So I switch my grip, base on the other side, and move to stand up. I do this because I want to get weight in my right foot, making it impossible to footlock. I can clear his leg from my hip, control his secondary leg with my left hand, and then look to back step, knee on belly, and clear the position to a top pin. So again, I clear the boot. I have trouble clearing his foot from my hip, so I base out to the other side, grip switching, standing up, and then control his foot for a back step around into a knee on belly and execute a top pin. Now another option to pass from the top is to clear that foot off my hip, and at the same time I'm quickly punching behind my knee in front of his hip, sliding my leg out and getting my butt underneath his arm to separate it from his body and clear the position almost to a north-south. So again, I punch behind my knee in front of his hip, spin and slide my legs out, and clear the position to a pin. And one of the questions came up is, what happens if it's difficult to clear that foot? Well, I'm going to control his other leg instead, backstepping, which for one removes that foot from my hip, but also opens up space for me to control his leg and his hip, turn the corner, crushing his legs down, clearing his arm to get an arm triangle position, then I can clear my legs to get round to a top pin. I can't clear the foot here, so I control his secondary foot, back stepping, and then turning the corner, smash passing through his legs, clearing my leg, and moving to a top pin. One more time. Really important to control the hip here as I turn, and then I look to clear his arm, getting control of his head and arm, clearing the legs, and moving around. Another question that came up was, in the no-gi, what do we do when we don't have the lapel to control? Well, we've got a couple of options. One, I can look to control his near side arm, preferably when he has his hands connected, actually. Then I can hip up and complete the transitions, grab the arm, put on the boot, and move through. However, the arm is sometimes a poor anchor because he can move it. So controlling the head is a secondary option. I grab the arm and move my control to his head, hipping out and over, ready to complete my same passing sequence. However, if he's leaning back, I can't control his arm or his head. It's better to just turn to that side and get weight on the foot so he can't footlock me, and then look to execute one of my two passes, either the back step or this quick pass, punching to the floor and spinning. So following this, we shifted our focus back to the bottom player. Now, when our top player starts trying to pass the guard, clearing the foot from the hip, in addition to the options that we talked about last week of shifting to our false hook ashi, we have a possibility to move immediately into an X guard. In order to do so, as he clears my foot, I need to take my left foot and insert it on the front side of his distal hip, and then my right foot drops down behind his knee. At this point, if he tries to pass the X guard, we can have the same shift in reverse, where my knee comes back to center and my left foot comes back up into the hip. We drilled this for a while as a way of building familiarity with the way in which the two guards transition cleanly into one another. Following this, we looked into X guard, off balances, sweeps, and back takes. Now, the way I want to off balance my opponent involves moving him away from me and to my right, as you can see here. This makes his other leg light and easy for me to elevate and get a scoop grip. From here, I can look to drop my foot to his ankle and tilt him backwards in a lumberjack sweep coming up to the top. So again, I off-balance my opponent away and forward, making his leg light and easy to get a scoop grip on the knee. I tilt him backwards, coming up to cement the pass. It's really important that we remember the detail of turning onto our hip, because that's what lifts his foot up and makes it light. If I don't do that, his base is going to be stronger and he's going to be more difficult to sweep. The second option that we looked at starts in the same way, but as I extend him, I lead with my elbow, passing his leg off to my other hand, getting a hook grip on his ankle, allowing me to spin, getting 2 crab hooks behind his knees, controlling his hips, extending my legs, seatbelt grip, get my hooks in, and we've got the back. So again, I off-balance my opponent, pass his leg off forward, spin underneath to a crab ride, and then lock in my hooks for the back take. One more time from a different angle, the off balance. I pass off efficiently to my right hand, scoop him forward, taking the back. Sometimes what will happen, particularly in no-gi, is that we find it difficult to get control of the hips as we try to extend away. Instead, I hold on to his ankles, tip him forward, and then chase the back. It can be dangerous to try and let go of the ankle control and go for the hips, because it gives him an opportunity to run away. So if he's moving forward, I just follow him with that posture, and then chase the back from standing. Another question that came up is what happens if my opponent sits back and it's difficult to scoop forward? Well, in that case, I lock in tight crab hooks and just roll over backwards with him, over his shoulder, and up into a top pin, ready to cement the position. So roll over backwards with tight crab hooks and lock in my passing position. The third option that we looked at was called the technical stand-up sweep. So I get my same scoop grip on his ankle, but then I want to kick away his second leg with my foot, base on my hand as I'm coming forward, pull that leg back, and then I can move forward into a passing position. There's a few different schools of thought, or a couple of schools of thought, as to which foot you should kick with. I've seen Kyotera teach the way that I'm doing here, where I kick with the bottom leg, whereas Lachlan Giles suggests kicking with the other leg because taking my right leg out of his knee can give him an opportunity to backstep and run away. Also, the different reactions that my opponent gives me here will determine how I'm going to finish the pass, whether their hands are based on the mat, if they're standing up tall, if they try and go belly down, or if they just accept the passing position. Depending on these different things, I'll pursue different options. There's a lot of detail that we didn't get full footage of, but just to note that that's all part of it. Lastly, I wanted to take a couple of the entries that we'd used last week and bring things back full circle to show that we can use those entries to get into our X guard directly and bypass single leg X if we feel like that's a better game for us. The first we looked at was our shin to shin entry. As I kick my leg up, instead of going outside the hip, I move it straight to the inside of his distal hip, locking in my X guard. Then I can move into my off balances, sweeps, and back takes. Secondarily, from butterfly guard, pull back, elevate under the armpits, and instead of moving that foot to the outside and one knee to the inside, I go straight on the inside, locking in either an overhook grip on the ankle or, as we see here, straight into our underhook scoop grip. So there you go, team. Another week wrapped up at Manawa BJJ. Hope you've enjoyed that. It's a nice short one for you this week. Lots of content more to come, so stay tuned and make sure you jump across and follow us on Instagram at GentleArtsNZ and at Queenstown_Jiu-Jitsu. Like, subscribe, and do everything you can to share and help support the growth of the channel and the growth of the team. Chea!
There's that mid-competition. Hey bro, so can you just adjust your pants real quick for me?